referee blows his whistle. No title this year for Manchester United or Alex Ferguson.
The summer of 1995. Manchester United had just lost the Premier League title to Blackburn Rovers, and Sir Alex Ferguson responded the only way a great manager knows how.
Is there these moments you wish you were playing?
He went out and signed 3 world-class players to fix the squad. Well, that's not what happened. What actually happened was this. He sold his captain, he sold his winger, he sold his striker, and he replaced them with nobody. No signings, no reinforcements, no safety net. Just a group of boys who had never played a full Premier League season. Boys who were told by a man on national television,
"You can't win anything with kids."
This is the story of how Sir Alex Ferguson didn't just prove that man wrong, he made him look like a fool in front of the whole country. To understand what made 1995 so extraordinary, you have to understand what Ferguson destroyed first. Paul Ince, gone. Sold to Inter Milan. Ince wasn't just a midfielder, he was the engine room, the enforcer, the man who called himself the governor, and in a Manchester United shirt he had earned that name. Combative, commanding, irreplaceable. Gone. Mark Hughes, gone. Sold to Chelsea. Hughes was more than a striker, he was the heartbeat of the dressing room, battling, relentless, a warrior who had bled for Ferguson's project from the very beginning. The fans adored him, the players trusted him. Gone. Andrei Kanchelskis, gone, sold to Everton. The Ukrainian winger had been one of the most electrifying players in England the season prior. Pace that defenders couldn't live with, crossing that created goals from nothing. 20 goals in all competitions the year before. Gone. 3 senior players, 3 different positions, 3 men who had won trophies, who had experience, who carried the weight of a title challenge, stripped from the squad in a single summer. And in their place? Nothing. No transfer record broken, no marquee arrival as stepping off a plane at Old Trafford, no reassurance for a fan base that had just watched Blackburn steal their title. The press circled, the pundits sharpened their knives, and on the 19th of August 1995, the first day of the new season, Manchester United travelled to Aston Villa, a Villa side that had spent heavily, a Villa side that looked, on paper, exactly like the kind of team you build when you are serious about winning. United lost 3-1. That night on Match of the Day, a former Liverpool defender named Alan Hansen looked into the camera and delivered what he believed was a simple footballing truth.
"You can't win anything with kids. The trick of winning the championship is having strength and depth. They just haven't got it."
He was right about the kids. He was wrong about everything else. Let's talk about who these kids actually were, because Alan Hansen saw children, Ferguson saw something else entirely. David Beckham, 20 years old, a midfielder from East London who could strike a dead ball with a precision that looked less like football and more like geometry. Not the fastest, not the strongest, but technically almost frighteningly gifted.
When you see David play, everybody says that he has a gift.
The kind of player who could change a game from a set piece 40 yards from goal. Paul Scholes, 20 years old, small, unremarkable to look at, but give him the ball in a tight space and watch what happened. He didn't run past people, he didn't need to. He simply played in pockets where others couldn't find him, and he released the ball before the press could arrive. A midfielder who thought faster than he moved, which in Scholes' case was already very fast. Nicky Butt, 20 years old, the least celebrated of the group then, the most underrated now. Butt was the player who made the others possible, the one who did the ugly work, who won the ball back, who disrupted, who competed. In a title-winning team, someone has to do the things that don't make the highlights reel. Butt did them without complaint, every single week. Gary Neville, 20 years old, a right-back who played like a right-back was supposed to be, a warrior. Intense, organised, ferocious in the tackle.
He didn't just defend his flank, he dominated it. And when the campaign got difficult in February and March, when other teams found the nerve to go for United's throat, it was Neville and his defensive discipline that kept clean sheets alive. Phil Neville, 18 years old, Gary's younger brother, playing his first full season of senior football, asked to cover multiple positions, asked to compete for a title, asked to grow up faster than almost any teenager in Premier League history. This was the squad. This was what Alan Hansen had looked at and seen failure. Ferguson looked at the same group and saw something that cannot be coached, cannot be bought, and cannot be faked. He saw hunger. But hunger alone doesn't win leagues, and the first 3 months of the season would test that belief to its absolute limit.
The 3-1 defeat at Villa was just the beginning. United lost to York City in the League Cup. York City, 3rd Division, at home. They went out of the UEFA Cup in the first round to a Russian side almost no one had heard of, Rota Volgograd. Newcastle United, funded, focused, electric, were flying. Kevin Keegan's side had spent on Les Ferdinand, on Ginola. They were beautiful to watch and devastating to play against. By Christmas, they had built a lead at the top of the table that felt less like an advantage and more like an announcement. This title race, Keegan seemed to be saying, is already over. And for a period in December and early January, it was hard to argue. United were winless in 5. Newcastle's lead climbed towards 12 points. 12 points in January. In any other context, that is a closed case. That is a manager who starts planning for next season. That is a group of players who tells itself quietly that the mountain is simply too steep. What happened next is what separates ordinary champions from legendary ones. But before United could make their move, they needed one more piece. The piece they've been missing since March of the previous season. On the 1st of October 1995, at Old Trafford against Liverpool, Eric Cantona walked back onto a football pitch. He had been gone for 8 months. 8 months earlier at Crystal Palace, Cantona had leapt into the crowd and attacked a supporter.
Oh my goodness me! He gets kicked! He punched the ban!
The ban that followed was seismic, not just because United lost their best player for most of a season, but because the question it raised was impossible to ignore. Was Cantona finished? Was the brilliance worth the madness? Could he come back and be the same player, carrying the same weight, commanding the same room? Old Trafford answered that question in 2 minutes. Cantona won a penalty. Cantona took the penalty. Cantona scored the penalty. Liverpool were held to a 2-2 draw, but no one was talking about the result. The King had returned. And now, with Cantona back, with Keane commanding midfield in Ince's absence like he had been born for the role, with the young players growing in confidence week by week, United began to move, slowly, methodically, like a machine that has finally found its gear.
January, February, March. Newcastle was still ahead, but the gap was closing. Then came the 27th of December, United versus Newcastle at Old Trafford, a game that would define the direction of the title race. Newcastle could go to a lead that was almost certainly unassailable. United needed to reduce it. Cole scored.
Keane scored.
2-0. The 12-point lead was suddenly 9, then 6, then 4. And then came the night that decided everything. The 4th of March 1996, St James's Park, Newcastle versus Manchester United. Newcastle were at home. Newcastle were ahead on points. Newcastle needed to win to push United back, to breathe again, to make the margin feel safe. What followed was one of the most remarkable individual performances in Premier League history. Peter Schmeichel.
Newcastle attacked. Ferdinand, Ginola, Asprilla, waves of it, the crowd roaring, the floodlights blazing, everything pointing towards a Newcastle victory that would effectively end the title race. Schmeichel stopped everything. And then, in the second half, from United's first genuine chance of the entire match, Cantona arrived at the back post. Cantona. Of course it was Cantona. 1-0. United left Tyneside with 3 points that should not have been theirs. Newcastle's lead was cut to a single point, and something had shifted, not just in the table, but inside Kevin Keegan's head.
Ferguson knew it. He could feel Keegan cracking, so he did what he always did when he sensed weakness in an opponent. He picked up a knife, not a physical one, and he started to twist. After United's 1-0 win over Leeds, Ferguson made a comment, casual, offhand. Devastating. He suggested publicly that teams like Leeds and Nottingham Forest might not try quite as hard against Newcastle as they did against Manchester United, that perhaps the motivation wasn't quite the same. He was accusing other clubs of not competing fairly. It was, by any reasonable measure, outrageous. But it wasn't really aimed at Leeds or Forest. It was aimed at one man. And on the 29th of April 1996, after Newcastle had beaten Leeds 1-0 at Elland Road, a result that kept them in the race, Kevin Keegan sat down in front of a Sky Sports camera. And he broke.
When you do that with footballers like he said about Leeds, and when you do things like that about a man like Stuart Pearce, I've kept really quiet, but I'll tell you something, he went down in my estimation when he said that.
His finger was jabbing, his voice was cracking.
I will love it if we beat them, love it.
The words reverberated across every television in England, not because of what Keegan said, but because of what it revealed. Ferguson hadn't just outplayed Keegan on the pitch, he'd climbed inside his mind, found the wires and pulled them apart, one by one, without Keegan even realising it was happening until he was already on camera, already unravelling, already handing Ferguson the title. Newcastle drew their next 2 games, United won theirs.
The 5th of May 1996, the final day of the season. Manchester United needed to match Newcastle's result to be champions. They travelled to Middlesbrough, Newcastle travelled to Tottenham. What happened at White Hart Lane was almost irrelevant, because at the Riverside Stadium, United were clinical, composed and utterly relentless. David May headed in the first, Andy Cole made it 2, Ryan Giggs, the elder statesman of the class of '92, brilliant all season, drove in the third. 3-0. Newcastle could only draw with Spurs, 1-1. Manchester United were champions. But that was not all. 6 days later, at Wembley, United faced Liverpool in the FA Cup final. The score was 0-0, 85 minutes gone, the game drifting towards extra time. Then, Cantona. Of course it was Cantona. A half volley struck first time from the edge of the area, arrowing into the bottom corner. 1-0, full time, double complete. The first English club to win the double twice, starting from the wreckage of a squad that Alan Hansen had called too young to win anything. Here is the thing that never gets said about 1995-96. The kids didn't win the league despite Ferguson's gamble. They won it because of who Ferguson was. Because he didn't see what Hansen saw. He didn't see age. He didn't see inexperience. He didn't see a risk. He saw Roy Keane dominating every midfield in England the moment Paul Ince left. He saw Cantona, the fractured genius, returning from exile and immediately becoming the best player in the country because he had spent 8 months in darkness, hungry to prove something. He saw Scholes finding passes that seasoned internationals couldn't see.
He saw Beckham delivering set pieces under title race pressure like it was a training session. He saw Gary Neville, a right-back who had barely been alive long enough to remember United winning the league the first time, playing every week like the championship depended on him personally. Because it did. And Ferguson knew something else too. Something he never said out loud, but which every decision he made that summer confirmed. A squad of hungry young players, loyal, unified, driven by something deeper than a contract. That squad is harder to break than any collection of expensive veterans. You can buy experience. You cannot buy the feeling of having something to prove. Alan Hansen was right about one thing. They were kids. But Alan Hansen had never sat in Alex Ferguson's office, had never looked at those players across a training pitch, had never felt what Ferguson felt, the absolute, unshakable certainty that greatness was already there, waiting to be unleashed. Manchester United won the double with kids, and those kids, Beckham, Scholes, Butt, the Neville brothers, would go on to win another league title, and another, and another. And in 1999, together with Cantona's successor and a manager who never believed in them, they would win the Champions League in the most dramatic final in the history of the sport. But that is a different story, and we'll tell it another time.